Welcome to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast, presented by FantasyGolfBag.com, your number one source for the most in-depth PGA Tour analysis in the daily fantasy and sports betting world. Each week, our experts will discuss everything you need to know, from the course preview and key stats to top plays, fades, and strategies. Whether golf betting, grinding out cash games, or playing for a big GPP win, our team has you covered. Let's get after it.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast. I am your host, Redkacheek, joined this evening. I actually have a co-host this evening, Skylar of the Golf Gurus. He's pulling double duty this week with the European Tour and the CJ Cup. And this is the PGA Tour podcast you are listening to. So we'll be previewing the CJ Cup at Nine Bridges over there in Korea. So excited to have an actual co-host on this evening to talk through this, limited field, no cut event. But it's kind of fun. I mean, it's a little bit tricky without strokes gained data. So we try to piece together some of the data we do have and then try to get some quotes. And we read a few more transcripts than we normally do on a normal week because there is no data to back it up. So excited to talk this through with Skylar. So I'll bring him in. Skylar, how's it going, man?
Good, man. When Brooks is in the field, I got to be here. So, and we get chased. We're pulling double duty for me and double Koepka's overseas. So it's twice time in 3 or 4 weeks these boys are playing together. So, yeah, man. No, excited for this. This is an awesome viewing course. I just love night golf, man.
This is even better than night golf.
Yeah, it locks at 6 o'clock. I remember very well where I was last year because I was still in Arizona. So it was I think it wrapped up probably midnight out in Scottsdale. We were out on a Saturday. It was because this is the first time Brooks ever became number one in the world.
Yeah,
after winning this tournament. So I can remember pounding a few Mick Ultras in celebration for Brooks. So excited for him and excited for Chase too, man. We can talk more about him later. But no, this should be a fun field. And we got Spieth back. I think that'll bring another interesting angle into play. So.
Yeah, so a lot of interesting stuff. So again, 78 guys I think I saw in the field. So we'll try to touch on our key targets this week and maybe a couple notables like you mentioned, Spieth. A couple tidbits there, but we'll want to try to focus on the golf course because there is none of that previous history to go off of. But yeah, man, it was funny seeing you text me about doing the podcast this week. I was like, man, something must be up because you're already booked for the Euro podcast, and there it is, Brooks Koepka. He'll pulls them out. So
you knew it.
Yeah, man, let's go ahead and dive in. We can get through this podcast again during these fall swing events. We can get through them in about 35-40 minutes. So let's go ahead and dive into the CJ Cup at Nine Bridges. Let's just talk through the golf course a little bit and see what we can divulge a little bit from the information. So again, the CJ Cup is at Nine Bridges. I don't know if there's now 10 bridges or what. I saw Axis, I think, was tweeting about that earlier this week or this weekend. But it's a par 72, 7,241 yards, so relatively short for PGA Tour average length. It's going to be – there's a couple interesting storylines kind of backed up here. And I was kind of filling Skylar in a bit this week because it is on foreign land, and we don't always know the weather leading up to this. So I'll go ahead and bring you in on Jeju Island, which is where this is going to be hosted. So this is like a big typhoon area, and I guess this is a big typhoon time of year. And this won't necessarily affect the golfers during the event. I actually haven't checked the weekend weather. But it's interesting to note that this golf course has gotten 5.5 inches of rain, or 56 inches of rain. Not 5.5. 56 inches of rain in the last 5-week period. So it's going to be pretty wet. And I think I saw quotes from the 2018 event, which was actually held in 2017. Jason Day was talking about this course, playing soft, and guys that are longer off the tee definitely have an advantage to hit driver. They'll have obviously shorter clubs in. They'll be able to take advantage of the par fives. He said that a few times in his interview, but did want to point that out. So I'll be interested to see. Again, I talk about this on sporadic podcasts, but I do think it'd be interesting to see some of the Golf Channel interviews this week and see how guys talk about the golf course. And if they do have any footage, let's see how wet it really is. If guys are hitting driver and they're really not rolling, but a yard or two, I wouldn't be surprised. And I think that would lend a hand even more to the Bombers. So It is bent grass greens. It's Pin Links bent grass, which is interesting grass. I'm not familiar with that, but it can't be too far off from a normal bent grass strain. But tough greens. This is probably one of the easiest courses all year that the guys will play tee to green. Really big driving accuracy number, really big green regulation number. It's 75% for both of those last year and just under that in 2018. But a lot of that was due to the weather. And the greens are like top 2 most difficult on tour in 3-putt avoidance, inside of 10 feet, one putt percentage. Like, these greens are brutal. 1, 2, 3, 4 the last 2 years for all the different ranges for putting. So extremely difficult putting. And the only thing I want to note, and then I'll bring you in, Skylar, just give me your final thoughts or your overall thoughts on the golf course. But you'll see 2 different types of scoring on this golf course. And even in 2018, and again, it's a wraparound season, so 2018 was 2 years ago. This was a really weird event where guys played really well on Thursday with decent weather, and then the weather was so bad that only 4 people, I think, shot 69 or better Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then conversely, last year, there was like 24, 21 birdies or something like that from the top 15 guys on average. Like, there's a ton of birdies to be made, a lot of bogeys and double bogeys the year prior. So just keep an eye on the weather. It's an easy golf course, tee to green. But if the wind does pick up, like I saw the final round when JT won, it was 15 to 25 miles an hour. And with some of those tee shots being elevated, I can't imagine that's very easy to navigate this golf course, even with the fairways being like super forgiving.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head of the type of styles this course can really spit out. I mean, we saw 2 elite guys, win in back-to-back years, the 2 times it was there. But I just think it's so, interesting for a course to not have any guys, after 2 years play all 4 rounds under 70, of this manner. Obviously, we have a smaller field and no cut. But
a strong field. Like, this is the best guys pretty much besides Chase Koepka, but and a couple of the Koreans.
Easy. But no, it's and we saw heavy hitters. Like you talked about a little bit of that distance, Brooks and Gary going 1-2 last year. 2017, you have JT, you kind of have a couple Australians up there with Leishman and Cam. But you also have some shorter guys, so it's I think you're exactly right on the weather kind of playing into us upticking off the tee. But we got some studs, I think more or less than were in there last year that, really can play for us. We got all 3 of the young guys that we'd want to see here. It just brings some interesting angles on how you want to play it out with JT and Brooks up top.
Yeah, and I will note, too, because I went back, and again, I just went back to last year. If I had enough time, I would have gone back another year. And when I looked through the Club Twirl and the guys that won that, see familiar face Jet Black X 2 and 3 there last year. But when I go down the leaderboard for, let's say, the top 100 on this list, the lowest salary was $49,800 all the way down. So it was $49,800, $49,900, and $50K. Again, the pricing is going to be a little bit stiffer up top just because it's a limited field with these guys. But don't be afraid to use the salary. It was 1 year for those guys, and obviously Brooks won. But then the year prior, JT won. So I do think that there's something to be said for trying to spin up for some of these studs, because it does seem like they're going to take advantage of this golf course a bit more because they have all the tools that you need to do well here. Obviously, the green regulation number is big, so that means proximity is going to be important, which is like a JT perspective, and obviously the driver and stuff like that. So I do think I'll be looking a little bit more at the top of this list in pricing. It's pretty stacked, but I do think it's going to be important for me to get one of these guys, not to jump ahead into the pricing yet, but I did think that was interesting that, conversely last week, what was the optimal lineup? Probably saved like $3,500 total.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So conversely, this week, at least from last year, with the way the pricing is, it's steep. JT at 11.7, Brooks at 11.4. You're going to be filling salary, so don't get too caught up with leaving salary on the table this week. Just try to be different, and maybe if someone gets chalky later in the week, And I will note it locks Wednesday at 8 p.m.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. Eastern.
Well, initially when they launched it, it was at 6. Let's see if they've updated exact times here. 6 p.m. Eastern, it still says.
Whew. So make sure you get your lineups.
Sometimes they do adjustment of it. Like Euro says midnight, and it's going to be off a little bit. But, yeah, I think it's close to 13 hours, I believe, off of where we're at.
Yeah.
Eastern Coast time. So, yeah, I mean, which is great. So,
yeah, get your lineups in. Get your lineups in. But yeah, any overall thoughts? I know you like to play a lot of the GPPs, and you're pretty good with single entry too. But I don't usually put too much thought into leaving salary on the table. But I do know people, they seem to consider every single week, and I usually build my lineups and don't have a bottom floor. Like if I want to leave $2,500 on the table, then I don't really care if I'm building a bunch of lineups. But it does seem like this week building out and using as much salary, especially in the mid range, probably the way to go with this type of strong field.
It's just these bottom feeders aren't great. You know what I mean? Like when you get into below, I mean, I guess not horrible. I mean,
you can get away like Keith Mitchell, 6,600, but when you drop below that, it does get a bit dicey. Like even with 4 rounds, they're not going to hang with a Victor Hovland and Matsuyama and Fleetwood for birdies, and that's going to be big this week.
Yep. I mean, anytime you get into a no cut, event that can produce, some scores. Like, still what? I mean, the winning score was still, 21 under, no matter how hard it played last year.
Yeah.
9 under, obviously, the year before. But
I mean, Gary Woodland had 27 birdies for the round or for the week. Like that's crazy.
I remember his Sunday, man. He made a real run. I mean, we saw some very low scores on Sunday. It was 62, 63, 64. Like,
shout out to Hatchman. Been on 2018 for the 2018 season. Had 24 birdies, led the field. There you go.
Oh, there you go, Hatch.
Yeah. He had 3 doubles though. Probably 3 putts and 4 putts.
Oh, at minimum. probably drove the green and doubles.
Yeah. But yeah, man, it's a fun week. I think it's a nice little mix from this fall swing with a lot of the Korn Ferry Tour guys. Like I enjoy watching the Korn Ferry Tour guys compete. Like I wouldn't say it gets boring watching DJ and JT go at it, but I think it's cool when you get these, quote unquote no names hopping up on the leaderboard and seeing how they can finish off a tournament.
Like yesterday was really fun to watch.
Yeah,
with
100%.
With Lanto, cashing the 50-1.
Yes.
Shout out like Tyler, my co-part, being all over that, and Adam on betting Lanto, like that. I mean, Hubbard was fun to see. Scott Harrington, what a story. What a back 9 really for him. That's what I love to see, and I would have loved to actually get into some courses with no strokes gained data that we had guaranteed 4 rounds at with these guys, because we could have, maybe had a little edge of the field with some KFT stats.
Absolutely.
But no, I think, I've enjoyed the fall swing and seeing some guys that were early on. It's going to pay benefit too as the season rolls on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, looking forward to this week and then get a little break in a couple weeks. So, yeah, this is a nice little spot for the tournament versus where they've had it in the past. So, if you're ready, man, I don't think again, there's no strokes gained data, but I know Axis did a course preview article you can find on the website at fantasygolfbag.com, and he kind of highlighted the distances and kind of projected out a lot of the approach shots. So you can still use strokes gained data. You can still use like Skylar, Golf Guru sheets, the EAP data and all that stuff. You're just not going to have it from the course specific. You're going to have to kind of make up your own decisions on how you think this course is going to play. You can use quotes. Obviously, we're trying to break it down for you in a couple of our articles. But yeah, definitely, it makes it a fun week when it's not just like straightforward. I like having to do a little more digging. So if you don't have anything else, man, we can dive into the top range a bit heftier than normal.
Yeah, let's fire away.
All right, so the last couple of weeks, I think there's like 4 or 5 guys over 10K, and this week we get about 7, I think. So starting off, the tip top, JT and Brooks Koepka, 11-7, 11-4, respectively. You're defending and then pre-defending champion. Hideki Matsuyama, 10-7. Victor Hovland taking a nice bump up to 10-5 in this field. as I read down this, where's DJ this week? What the heck?
Yeah, no DJ here. I mean, I wonder how he's going to come back to start the year after being so kind of in a rut to finish last season. Interesting to see him, but no, I mean, it's just it's just the boys up top, JT and Brooksy, and you know my stance, but like I have no problem with honestly either of them. Brooks obviously was horrible out in Vegas, and. I mean, realistically, what's the point of him going out there and playing it right there? There's no motivation. I think it did help to get Chase there. Yeah. And Chase obviously coming with him again. Jenna probably wanted to, go out in Vegas and, why not? At the end of the day, why not take, some money and go out there and have some fun? But he clearly comes back here because he likes the course. He had success on it. And he's going to, end up playing some of those Euro fall events over here too in the WGC. So he's going to spend some times overseas. But the course suits what you're looking for when we're talking about that off the tee strength of his. So if I'm picking between the two, I think it is very, very, very close. But I just think, Brooks is a better player than JT if I'm going to make my decision down to one, and that's where I land.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I don't mind either one. I feel like that extra 1,000 down might be where I end up going. So, like, just say a Victor Hovland over them. As long as JT and Brooks don't win, then you can do fine with that pivot. It's just I do think the $1,000, you don't think about it as much in the 10K range. It's weird when, 6,600 to 7,600 always seems like a huge deal in talent. But we don't always think about it that way in the 10K range because the talent's so close. But that $1,000 can come in handy. So for me, when I first start looking through this, that low 10K, just because it's a pretty steep drop off, I would say if this was like Masters pricing and let's say JT or Rory was at that 10.7 number, it'd be that'd be pretty hard to skip on. But I do think the $1,000 savings down to Victor Hovland is going to be big, and he's been playing great. Obviously, hasn't seen this golf course. But his stats just keep lining up. He's been gaining strokes putting, which is something that we kind of kicked around over the weekend. Maybe trying to get a hold on a guy that's coming in with some confidence with the flat stick. You can't do that with all the way down the pricing, but I think for the elite guys, you can definitely get some players maybe have some confidence with their ball striking and their putting going into an event. And Victor Hovland certainly has done that.
And he did it at Wentworth. He went to a challenging course he's never seen before or played before, and arguably, the strongest, one of the strongest fields of the year, obviously the most strong one on the European Tour, and competed very well there. So, he's well deserving of 10-5. And if I'm not playing Brooks, I'm definitely playing Hovland, and that's. I just wonder how ownership's gonna end up over there.
It should be pretty spread out. It's tough with JT and Brooks. I will say with Hovland, man, I don't know if people realize you know me because you'll bring up some other up and coming stars, and I'm not so quick to jump on board. But Hovland's been a cash darling, man. He can't, knock on wood, he doesn't miss cuts. I feel like he's more consistent than some of these elite guys. He hasn't capped off with a victory yet, but the whole deal with him safely getting through cuts and then kind of being around contention at the end of the week, man, it's hard for me to pass up on that. And in 10-5, I think he still has upside.
I mean, he hasn't missed a cut since he turned pro. He outside of his first tournament, so U.S. Open, he was still an amateur. Went pro at the Travelers, got 54th. Since then, has gone 13, 13, 16, 4, 11, 2, 10, 11.
Oh, you love it, man. Love to hear that.
So, I mean, this is probably the most expensive he's ever been, correct?
Yeah.
You think that's –
Yeah. Did he play in the Greenbrier or something?
I don't know what he was. Yeah, he played the Greenbrier. So he would have been kind of right in that ballpark probably there.
Probably, yeah.
But well deserving for it. I mean, and Morikawa too. I mean, he's as consistent as they come as well. When we're looking, especially at an approach, type of course. I mean, he literally has not missed a cut. And actually, it doesn't matter if they make or miss the cut this week as long as they don't withdraw. But you just know the type of play you're going to get on those two.
Yeah, absolutely. So my initial lean for sure, just to kind of cap off this top range. I don't know if you want to talk to Spieth in a second, but my lean is certainly going down to Hovland. I'll probably have exposure to Fleetwood and Morikawa as well, but Hovland's my preferred play there at 10-5. And then if I had to play one of the two elite guys, my play would be JT.
Of course, when you're a fish.
Yeah, fish with money. That once more. So, yeah, I don't hate Brooks at all, but at 11-7 for JT, if I'm going to pay the extra money, we'll see where ownership shakes out. If it comes in another Brooks week where he's like 11%, then okay, yeah, I'll consider that over JT at 24%. But JT's been great. I don't think you can deny that. Tee to green putting on this golf course. He's got probably the best putting splits on this course, even though that's 2-year sample, which is something I wanted to look for on these tough greens, is someone that's putted consecutively really well both years. So he's definitely at the top of that list.
So let's talk about the best putter in the world then.
Mr. Spieth. He drains 40-footers like they're one-footers.
Yes, man. You know what I mean? Like, that's nothing for him.
Yeah.
But, yeah, dude, I'm always intrigued at Spieth when you can eliminate the downside of missing 2 rounds, where, we're getting all 4 of him. He makes an incredible amount of birdies. We saw when his game was even putrid that he still was able to find birdies. And like Axis talked about today, he stirred the pot a little bit in regards to Spieth being one of the best players of birdie rates when hitting the greens or when hitting the fairway. Well, it's easier to hit the fairway here than most places, and still easier to hit the green here than most places. Just harder to get the ball in the hole once you get on the green. Well, that's the problem that, other people have shown, but he continues to do it well. I mean, his putting year was unbelievable, and there's no – of course, there is regression in the mean, but is there going to be, positive regression for him from a ball striking standpoint, that he, had shown success in at that time? And, he's had 7-8 weeks off probably right about. Mm-hmm. I think this is a 6th week, so he didn't make the tournament tour championship. So, yeah, 7 weeks off he's had off now. You got to imagine his biggest focus is these irons, and if you can get 4 rounds in a row to figure it out, I like that. I think it's intriguing to get at when people, once again, probably aren't going to go there.
Yeah. I'm not a big, Spieth fan, and I'm not a big Spieth hater. I'm no Roslin. I'm no whoever else hates Spieth, which seems like everybody on Twitter.
Roslin to bear off. Those are the two polar ends of the spectrum.
There you go. Perfect. I have no issue going to Spieth. And honestly, I think really highly of Spieth. I mean, he's a guy that's been, since he was young, playing with JT, like he was better than JT growing up. And, he had that hot run when he won, 3 majors in 2 years or whatever it was. And okay, maybe he, exceeded expectations a bit, but he's still better than how he played all of last year. Ball striking wise, he had a really bad year. But like you said, he made birdies, he scored. And at a course like this where driving accuracy is going to be diminished from a priority, I don't hate it at all. 10K, I can't imagine he's going to be over 6%, 7% at 10K. Most people are just going to shy away from that immediately.
Yeah, I mean, you still look at the birdie rate, from the entire 2019 season, and he was 8th in this field. And you look at people that had, more than just say more than 50 rounds, he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th in the field. You know what I mean? Yeah. So.
His problem's mental. You can tell if you've watched him play on telecasts, he's talking to himself, yelling at his caddy. That's a mental thing, and it bleeds into your full game, your full long game for sure. But he's still better than how he's played, and I'm willing to buy low at ownership, even though he's kind of priced up.
So the question is, can you play 2 of them? Can you pair a Hovland Spieth, a Brooks Spieth if you're getting a little bit dangerous with it?
I think you should try.
Go that route. Yeah,
I think you should try in GPPs. If you're building 10, 20 lineups, 10's probably a little bit light. It'll be tougher to feel confident about a punt down there, but 20 lineups for sure, and 50, 100, whatever. But I do think if you can get 2 studs into your lineups and then try to get one of those punts right that are down in the low 6Ks, again, you still have 4 rounds from him. All you need is probably a top 20 from one of these, unknown Koreans. And you can dig into some research and look at how they played last week. We'll talk about Sungjae here in a second. But even in that event that he just won, that's probably a good enough determination to maybe say, maybe this guy's got some confidence, or he's coming in with some, relatively good form. He might be worth it at 6,200 or 6,100, whatever it is, just to make the lineup work with 2 studs. I don't hate that one bit.
Yeah, and I'm not blown away by people in some of the lower ranges that we talk about. So it would be, isolating correctly for that 7K, 6K range. But yeah, I'm good to proceed into the 9s here, and I'll just kind of lead it off. I actually, if I had to pick just one guy out of the 9K range, this may surprise you, but this dude is on an absolute ball striking tear. I love Sergio at that price. I think 9,100 for Sergio is phenomenal.
So tell me how he's done. I know his ball striking has been great, and on the European tour, especially the Spanish events, he's done fine. But how's his putting really been? That's one thing probably before I get to the 8K range. That's one thing I would probably want to look at to say, look, has this guy even shown any upside putting? Because I know for a while that was his big MO. He would have 35 putts around. That's more than 2 putts per green.
So strokes gained putting over the last 10 tournaments, he is losing just a little over 0.2 strokes, about a quarter stroke per round.
Okay.
So if you look at players that are top 20, just say, in strokes gained field differential over the last 10 tournaments, you only see, out of the top 10, you say just top 10, he's the only one to be losing strokes on the green and still playing at the elite level he is. And to lose strokes, at Europe events when, you see a lot of horrific putters on the European tour, really means you do struggle on the greens. So the question, though, remains is when, and I always flip back and forth on this, when there is, and you're someone who played, at a high level, when there's more difficult to putt on greens, does it benefit bad putters or good putters more?
I think it benefits the bad putters more.
That's where I agree too.
Yeah, because it brings the good putters back to the field just a bit. Obviously, they can still putt well, but you don't have these good greens where it's easy to putt on. And if you putt bad, you're getting lapped because someone's has 25 putts around or something like that, while you have 33. You're literally losing 8 strokes around on the greens to these leaders.
Yep. So that's where. Man, his ball striking though, it's just been phenomenal. So.
It was always an equalizer. When I played in events, I hated playing. It's still frustrating mentally because obviously we're playing tournaments that we don't have stats that we can tell. Oh yeah, it's tough for everybody. But for me personally, you're going to an event where it feels tough to make 10 footers or something like that. It's tough for everybody, and generally that means the scoring's not going to get as low. So you don't feel like you're getting, someone's running away from you. So it definitely keeps you in it a bit more if you're going to struggle putting. It just becomes more of ball striking and just make a couple of those putts. I think when the putting gets difficult like this, I think that makes the par 5 scoring a little bit more valuable because those longer hitters, like I said, kind of the top of the show, if they can hit near the green in 2 or on the green in 2 and get an easy 2-putt birdie, that's 4 birdies around probably, and that's enough. You get 2 more somewhere, you're shooting 6 under for the day. That's pretty good on this golf course, and I think par 5s will be a pretty big key for the winner. As we've seen JT and Brooks, I'm sure they crushed the par 5s when they won both years.
So what I'm looking still into Sergio and playing this, and what's kind of interesting is the European Tour has gone, despite what Rory has to say, the European Tour has seen some difficult courses to birdie consistently on over the last little bit. So you look at 2 people who are really high and weighted birdie or better. So Sergio right here. So we're comparing Sergio and just say Hovland, okay?
Yeah.
So Victor has just a pure birdie or better percent at 30%. That's his better, and he's averaging a substantial amount. He's first in weighted BOB, But if you look at Sergio, who is third in weighted BOB, he's actually only at 20% birdie or better rate. So just to know that he has shown a much better birdie rate in the field, if someone who's just looking blindly at BOB misses those little things that you see, because people like Willett, who we can maybe talk on in the 8K range, is someone similar who's shown success over there, but it's not because their just pure birdie number is so high, but they're outscoring the field at that level. So I do like Sergio overall.
Okay, yeah, I like that. And he's another one, kind of on that, maybe not as close to, it's definitely not as close to Spieth from a ball striking putting perspective, but from a low owned perspective, most people will probably avoid. And if people don't realize, he's been playing mostly on the European Tour since the British Open, really, I think. Maybe even before the British Open, he's just been playing primarily there. So most people that pay attention to the PGA Tour won't know that or see those results. And those, I think you already posted those stats, the Euro rolling stats.
Everything is completely live on the site right now.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, in the 9K range outside of that, I don't mind going back to guys that played well last year. So like a Gary Woodland and Rafa Carrera-Bello. Those are two that I want to target there. Leishman, I can't figure out at 9,200. He's had issues with his back throughout the year. I played him, and he'd shoot 75 and withdraw. And then 2 weeks ago at the Shriners or wherever that was, he decides to finish like top 3. And then the one thing I did want to note is with Sung J M, and I kind of alluded to it, he did win an event last week on the Korean Tour. Obviously, he's from Korea. I think he grew up in this area, Jeju Island, whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, obviously he's been playing great. He's 9,700 and coming off a win on the Korean Tour. Not the strongest of fields for sure, but it's still good for his confidence to know where his game is at with the win. So coming here at 9,700, I think that's a pretty good value. Yeah,
I mean, if it's about time, first off, he got to the winner's circle again. It's been a year since he capped off the end of the Korn Ferry Tour. But yeah, he probably gets a significant bump, for being back in Korea and playing and, the consistency that he's shown. I don't know if I'm going to target a more distance with the dampness and the way Axis kind of laid out the course profile. If I see myself landing on Sungjae, there's no problem with him. But I still prefer Woodland to him, for $300 less. I prefer Sergio to them both there. But he would be ahead of Leishman for me. So Sergio Woodland would be 1-2 because the course set up for me.
Good point. So from a rating standpoint, I would 100% agree. Like a Woodland over Sungjae 1-1. Yeah, I'll take Woodland all day. But did want to point out, like in tournaments, dude, I think Sungjae is interesting, even with the driving distance aspect, because he's coming off a win. And if people obviously listen to the podcast, they'll hear that, but maybe others won't pay attention to the Korean Tour. I could certainly see him winning back to back. I think he actually grew up on this golf course, so take that for what it's worth. Could be nothing. But even though he's more expensive, if he is the winner or finishes top 2, you'll need him in your lineup. So I don't hate that. But yeah, I do a lot of the 1v1, kind of like you said. And would I want Gary Woodland, playing for $100,000 of my money versus Sung J M? Yes. And
Sungjae did play here when he was in great form last year too, coming off a fourth, and he got 41st.
Yeah.
So, not to say I'm going to draw all conclusions from 1 year sample size, but it's good. It's good to see him have a strong Sunday like he did there to pull through.
Yep. All right, let's hit this 8K range, and we get an interesting group of guys. Like Danny Willett, not the longest of hitters, been playing great on the European Tour, though. I mean, like phenomenal. It's basically back to his 2017 Masters win or 2016 Masters win, whenever that was. Like he's back in form, and then you get guys like Kevin Na, who's just, I can't figure him out. And kind of the same with Matthew Wolff, and then you get the ball strikers down at the bottom. And it's a tough range for me because, like, the guys that are coming off the PGA Tour that you feel comfortable rostering week to week, they doesn't seem like they have the big advantage this week. Like a Ches Reavie is a super safe option. most weeks at 8,300 because he's so consistent tee to green. But with the distance advantage that he's losing, he's probably going to be able to keep up with the birdies. It kind of makes me steer away from him. So I'd be leaning to be a little bit more aggressive in this range. I'm not sure how you feel about Willett, but like a Wolf coming off a pretty good showing there at the Shriners. Joaquin Niemann, obviously, a couple weeks ago getting his win at Greenbrier. And then I think Putnam and Ben On are also interesting. So like this range, I would say is about 50-50 for me, but there's a couple that scare me. And then a couple that I'm a bit more like willing to risk it just because they seem to fit the profile of the golf course.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I love Kevin Na and how awesome it was to see him, be successful, in Vegas to win in his hometown like that, like this course for me, what I'm looking at does not line up at all for Kevin Na. So
dude, I don't know if I ever have a golf course that lines up.
And that's the thing, like it's almost like it's almost a little disrespectful that he's a 3-time winner in the last 12 events or something like that, right? Not 12 events.
It's like the last year, I think, since last fall.
Yeah,
because he won earlier this year too.
So and to still be priced at 50-1 in this field, like it's getting to the point of like you just bet the guy, like that's where because that's a crazy win rate, and to still be priced at that number. And they weren't like chump wins, all of them.
No, but it was so bad in between. So it's about 12 months. It was the Greenbrier, then he won at Fort Worth, the Charles Schwab, and the Shriners. The Shriners he gained 14 strokes putting, and the Greenbrier he gained 7 strokes putting. But in between that, I mean, he had miscuts, 50 seconds, 25th, 19th, 50 seconds, miscuts, 77. Like it's all over the map. It's really tough for me. I never get down when he wins. Like, okay, good job, man. Like maybe I should consider betting you more often. But playing him in DFS is a different beast, and it's all over the map.
Yeah, no, I agree for you. So if I'm going to pick people out of the 8K range, I don't have a problem with Willett. Probably not be my first lean. I really like Neiman at that price. Think it's a solid price. I'm always going to fall for Wolf's birdie rate. Those would be 1-2 for me. I don't have any other strong leans. I mean, Ben An would probably be the third.
He's been rough. Don't want to I do like Benny On, but he's had a rough couple weeks now.
When I go to like a 4-course type or 4-round type event, I think I find myself leaning a bit more on long term than short term, just because we're not having to put in the variance of trying to make the cut. So I definitely agree that the best, if I'm looking at like last 5 tournaments for guys, I think the best last 5 tournaments there, the top 3 are Wolf, Neiman, and Fratelli, if we're going 8K range on who I like. But if I'm looking kind of into that long-term range, that's where Benny Ann's type of game, I think, fits very well here.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I mean, again, we talked about him on the greens. It could be really, really rough. But just he's going to make the birdies.
Yeah, it'll be valuable. I mean, that's what he led in 2018 for the 2018 event. That same reason. So the other one that I was interested in, a little bit of course history, and I don't know if he's underpriced. It's probably fairly priced in this field, but we've seen him priced up a bit higher than this, I think, in like the WGCs. But Tyrrell Hatton, but he putted bad last week. He lost strokes putting, and I don't weigh too much on really recent form, or like recent putting splits. But I did want to see a little bit of a bump off of him last week. I would have been really excited at 82. So maybe I'll just go to the name commodities with a Neiman and a Wolf in this 8K range. That might be the preferred play. And then sprinkle in a Benny on, maybe a little bit of Lucas Glover and Hatton. But yeah, not a ton.
I agree with you on Hatton. Some sneaky ball striking lately. He was almost 2 strokes around at the BMW PGA, almost a stroke around at Alfred Dunhill, and then over 2 strokes per round at Italy. And he's, I guess, like from what we said, like he's a habitual good putter. I don't know if that's, been as true over the last, year or so. But I always fall for Hatton's talent. I think he's a very, very, very good player.
So
I think he can win a major. Like, that's the type of player when I don't know if I can say that about other people he's priced around, No,
I definitely do. He's kind of got the hot collar that you want to see from a competitor because he gets so pissed off that's kind of enough for you to feel like he's going to play hard for you. Like, okay, it might blow up in his face, but at least he's not out there just kind of Ches Reevying it. Like,
for sure.
This is great, guys.
Yeah, no, he's definitely one of the funniest guys out there. I love that video this past week. Did you catch the one of him?
Yeah, I saw.
Like, his fiance shut the porta potty door during his backswing, and he's hilarious.
I will say there's some decently funny guys on the PGA Tour, I'm sure, but the European Tour guys like Eddie Pepperell, Hatton, even was it Lee Westwood and freaking Tommy Fleetwood. Like, dude,
Stenson's hilarious.
Stenson's hilarious. Yeah. Like, those guys over in Europe, like, the UK humor is like right up my alley. Like, I can handle that. That's so funny. We need more of that on the PGA Tour content side. God, I can't get enough of it.
Yep. No, I agree.
So speaking of the Italian Open, like, how many strokes if Guido got into this would he win by? Because, like, I'm guessing at least 4 or 5.
So if you neutralize the putting like they say here, I mean, probably 6. I would go 6.
So guaranteed top 10, top 20 money. I mean, you basically just banked the whole year on this top 20.
Yeah. I would mortgage my house. Yes. There's no doubt about it.
No doubt.
He would be 1. Bobby Mack would be 2. Brooks 3. I mean, if you give me a tournament with Brooks, Guido, and Bobby Mack, you'd have to expense wherever it is for me to go, and Axis would be there right with me. Like,
it'd be the British Open next year. Where's that going to be held?
Okay,
there you go.
We'll be there.
We need to go. We need to have an FGB gathering at the British Open next year or the Ryder Cup. That'd be pretty sick if they somehow got on the team. European Tour is pretty strong, but
I'm not the one in 2020. Me and Axis talk about this like every pod we're on, but 2022 is in Rome. It's in Italy.
Oh wow!
So Guido has to be on the team.
Oh, he'll get a captain's pick.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. And then Bob's going to be the best player, in Europe at that point. So
he'll have a few majors already. Dude's sick.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe he didn't play well on Sunday yesterday. That was sick, man. But yeah, I mean, that's all I come out of the pods to talk Brooks, Guido, and Bob.
I know. I got to feed your ego, man.
It's too bad Bjerregaard's not playing this week, or else I'd be right there too.
Good. I'm glad I could feed a couple lines to you. This is right up the alley. Since I missed the Euro podcast, I have to get some Guido talk in there. So,
and the best part, I don't think people realize this because this is a fun time of the year, and we'll get to it a little bit later. Is Q School? Is this time of the year?
Yeah.
So at this time of the year, Guido Migliozzi was playing in European Tour Q School. He had to go through all of the stages. I don't know if you knew that, but he went through all of the stages because he played well in the Alps Tour, but he went through every single stage. So, like, Chase Koepka just graduated from first to second stage of KFT Q School. I think I am enamored at this time of the year at all the quality of golf, and it so well. Yeah. But Q School is such a fun time of year.
Yeah, Q School's one. Like, I kind of miss Q School, even though it sucks, just because it's just a nut punch. Like, you get dialed up for 4 rounds and you just got to play. Otherwise, you get nothing. Like, if guys lose in the second round of the Korn Ferry Tour Q School, they have nothing. Like, they literally don't have a job. It's just wild. So it's really fun to watch. I know Jude, your boy Jude, follows it pretty closely, but Q School is fun. I didn't realize Guido went through every stage over there on the European Tour. I didn't know how old he was. Some guys just do the challenge tour.
Kitayama did too. So they had two-time winners come through first stage and all the way through of European Tour Q School last year.
I know we're getting a little bit off topic, but Brooks. Most people, I mean, they should know this by now, but like Brooks went the European Tour route, and Kitayama is American. Like, there's a lot of these guys going over to the European Tour to try to get ready to come back to the PGA Tour. Like, Uline did that too. He's been playing terrible, but he might have been the very first one, and he had so much money backing him. His dad's the CEO of Titleist. technically a Kushnet who owned Puma and all that stuff. And he's like, yeah, instead of just paying for sponsor exemptions, I'm just going to go play a full year on the European tour. And then Brooks did it, and then Brooks ended up being Brooks. But that's a pretty cool, like, for the Americans to go over there and play on the European tour. Like, how cool would that be, man? If, like, you're a professional golfer, you're not playing for the kind of money, but you're touring all these, like, famous cities in Europe. I always thought that would have been the coolest thing. I just didn't have a bankroll at the time to go
and
float
you grow
800K.
up too. You know what I mean? You learn to grow up.
Oh, and travel and stuff like that.
So, like, Akshay Bhatia, your boy,
sure.
was on No Laying Up a couple weeks ago, and they talked thoroughly about this because he's 17 years old.
Yep.
I don't even think he turns 18 yet, but talked about would he entertain going that different route, and he lives at home right now, and it's just a different type of maturity needed to do that type of route. One, a financial backing, but two, a maturity level to be 3,000 miles from home. Figuring it out on the Challenge Tour, going to the middle of nowhere, playing these golf courses.
Yeah, Surrey's another one that did it. That was the other one I was thinking of. Surrey's done that. So
I love it.
It's a cool idea.
Great tangent right now. And
I know.
People that are playing CJ Cup and that are riding and listening to this podcast are the people that love this stuff. So we're cool with I hope you're cool with us going on the tangent, but you're listening to us for a reason, and I think you're enamored with the golf process.
Yeah,
so
we need more of these casual ones because there's so much that goes on in the world of golf.
Yeah, fine. If you want to know anything about the European Q School, we can make a DFS tournament. We'll have Drew chalk it all up.
There we go. That'll get
you can bet on the KFT Finals Q School. Like Bovada threw it up there last year with odds. You got each ways. Panda almost won. He got second last year. People were so mad because we all hammered him. He lost.
And he just won like second stage like 2 weeks ago, I think. Something like that. Like, dude's a Q School guy. He's a Q School
that's
finalist.
It. We know his time of the year.
Yeah, just hammer him. All right. Let's
we're at 7Ks.
Yeah, let's hit the 7Ks. We'll touch on the high range, and then we'll hit the low range, bleed into the sixes. So starting up here, like with Sabatini, I got to talk about Axis's boy Sabs, coming off a decent finish, but he's been playing really well. He's been over in Europe the last couple weeks, so I feel like the time zone change won't be a big deal for him. So Sabatini, Corey Connors, and then Ian Poulter. So Poulter is really interesting there at 7,700. When I looked through the putting splits for the last 2 years, I think he was around 11th in looking at year 18 and year 19 putting splits, averaging 30 putts per round on these tough greens. And, we know him as a good putter, but he's also a pretty good ball striker. So I don't mind going to a Poulter, finished 15th and 10th in those 2 years. So that was something I kicked around over the weekend with Ollie, a.k.a. Workacut, who's doing our showdown content on Thursday, or 4 Thursdays. But looking at guys that actually have putted well at that event, looking at more course-specific putting, and it's a small sample, but it's 8 rounds, and I do think there's some consistency there for Poulter to feel good. And I don't think it's a coincidence that he's played well here. And I think those Houston Open greens were similar, where he won and just didn't decide to defend his title. Pat Perez going back-to-back with, top 5? I'm probably not going to hit on that at all. And I guess Charles Howell is probably the one solid choice at 7,600 that he's just a very good player for where he's at. I know he played poorly here last year, but 19th the year prior. I do think he's consistent enough tee to green. It's probably not a bad play when you're looking at a balanced roster.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, if you are following my track record of who I've been picking to play right now, it should be pretty obvious who I'm going to say in the top 7Ks here, and it's Corey Connors.
Yep.
I mean, great ball strikers, great distance, can't putt to save their lives. Bring it on. 4 rounds of it, I'll take it on. I'll take the Connors over anybody in the range. Yeah,
and you got the kind of terrible greens or tougher putting greens, so that should negate that just a bit. Yeah, I can get behind that. I mean, his ball striking has been super consistent all year for the last 2 seasons. So approach off the tee. I don't think he's the longest. Again, I think distance is a good advantage for like the top guys, but when you get down here, you can't really be too picky. But I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think he's really that long. I feel like his accuracy is more of his strength.
Yeah, he's top 20 in the field on the year in distance.
Wow.
Nothing crazy, 75 percentile. But I mean, you gotta remember we have an 80-man field, so
And a lot of them are the Koreans.
So he is, he's right with Sergio, Sung Kang, HV3 unweighted driving distance.
Okay, that's not awful. I mean, it's no Ches Reavie, so that's okay.
Definitely not Ches Reavie, no, but it's not nothing crazy. But it kind of brings me, like, I'm just picking and choosing out guys here, and I'll kind of bring our way to the bottom seven.
Yeah, go for it.
Bottom sevens here, and like someone who's kind of really popping lately when I'm looking at kind of statistically, and then also has success on this course. I think it would have been just his one tournament 2 weeks ago, is Ryan Palmer.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Luke List. That's my guy.
I know people want to play List after he really showed out 2 weeks ago. He was there after day one yesterday or last weekend, but I like Palmer. Palmer, from a statistical standpoint, had a really good tournament 2 weeks ago and really elevates him from a standpoint. But, I mean, long-term, he is the best play outside of actual statistical, like jazzy jazz, like type of thing. If I avoid jazz, because Jazz has two tournaments, if we're looking at the PGA stats, like Palmer for me is the guy there. But I don't hate List either.
Yeah, List is interesting. I don't always play him, but like we talk about the golf course being difficult on the greens and ball striking is a key. It's, I don't know if it was just the one year where he finished, I think he finished fifth 2 years ago. And when we look at his putting, he didn't really putt that well and still finished really well. So I think he's really in play for me. And then Jazz, certainly at 7K is going to be a pretty good salary saver for me. So both Luke List and Jazz, if you want to skip some of the mid-range, that probably allows you to fit the studs into this cheap side. And then we'll
People are going to play Patty Pat too.
I'm not going to play any.
No, I'm not going to either. But
the course history is interesting.
Yeah, and then coming off of a hot week, withdrawing just to play here. Yeah, I'm not going there. But man, the 6Ks are ugly.
Yeah, a lot of the Koreans real cheap, and even the PGA Tour guys that we're seeing have been really having a rough year. Max Homa, Wyndham Clark. I can't just trust putting strictly, and his ball striking's been awful. So it's just miss. Like, there's no hit or miss down here. It's a lot of miss, and you're going to need to touch on some. I'd probably lean to Adam Long. That's always my go-to in the very cheap side.
Not Adam Long, your guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to Adam Long.
No doubt about it. I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
I would say if you got the nuts, would you go back to Matt Jones?
I thought about that earlier today, man, and it's really tough. It would have to be in just multiple lineups and GPPs, because he's burned me twice now with these WDs in just the last 4 tournaments, and it really sucks. But 6,500 when he was 9,400 last week, it doesn't really make sense for me not to play him. But man, those WDs burn. So what's your thoughts on him? His ball striking's been fine.
He just got on the flight early to get there and play in Korea. Just wanted to get over there and get excited. I mean, if he's in the field and he's going over there, like if we can find confirmation of him at the course, there's no way he's flying across the world to go to the course to not try to finish the tournament.
Does he get prize money for teeing up though?
I thought they got rid of that rule because it's not a WGC.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We could get some clarification on that, but
it would still be speculation. But that would be something I was just thinking of.
Yeah, I just think it would be interesting to look at him because of that, because you might he probably isn't deserving. He's probably the best play at this range, but the downside's there, which is going to eliminate that ownership. You know what I mean? So, yeah. I mean, 6,500, interesting. If you're talking about a little hotness, Chase Koepka getting out of the first round of Q School, I mean, it's kind of crazy. Troy Merritt is a EAP superstar, so to speak. But there is nobody from Korea, truthfully, that
they're really worth a shot on.
I mean, Suman Lee, if you're looking at it, he's finished 9th, 1st, 7th in the last 3 weeks over there. But outside of him, man,
I had interest in Minwoo, but I didn't see he made the field unless they had a different name for him. But,
no, he's not in the field. No.
He would have been the one guy I would have been rostering.
Okay, I would have been all in.
He should have been in the field.
Dude, Minwoo Lee is a superstar.
There you go.
I truly believe that. Superstar. I mean,
there's so many Woos and Lees down here that I just figured they just put the wrong name in, and I was going to roster one of them.
You know, he finished sixth last week, and he shot an 81 in the third round.
I saw.
I don't know if anyone else shot a round in the 80s who finished. I'm looking at it right now. Who finished
like top 25?
Yeah. Someone in 29th shot an 80 on one day too, and that's literally it. He finished sixth at 81 with an 81.
That's DK scoring for you. That would have been perfect.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk in a year when Minwoo Lee is 6,800 and we're like maxing to get him in there.
I like it. I would just say,
man.
That's
how I think.
That works. I mean, Adam Long is a go-to all the week. I know that all the Fantasy Golf Bag members already know that. The EAP stats stand out a lot for him. So I would say just keep an eye on that. If any of these guys coming off the PGA Tour, check the EAP stats and see which ones are popping. That's a pretty good determinant for these cheap values because you're just looking for some upside. Maybe some consistency in those proximity numbers that the EAP provides. So, yeah, man, I think that'll do it. And sorry we went on a couple of tangents there, but excited to talk about the CJ Cup and remember everyone to get their lineups in a bit early. Do you have any final thoughts? And then I'll wrap us up and get us out of here.
Nope, I am good. It should be fun with kind of this swing of the season. But thank you all for getting to this point of the podcast.
Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it, guys. As always, leave a rating and a review on iTunes. That always goes a long way. And you can find our work at fantasygolfbag.com. Good luck in your contest this week, and we will see you later this week for some showdown content and the free stats on the website. So good luck with everybody. See ya.